The conviction made headlines for one reason. No body, and no crime scene, and no victim ever officially located. Yet someone was sent to prison, all because of a 911 call that should have changed everything, but instead led to one of the strangest true crime cases in modern history. Because when police followed that call to its source, there was nothing there. No injured person, and no forced entry, and no evidence of crime. Just silence, and a mystery that refuses to stay buried. The call came in at 2:17 a.m. A woman's voice, shaking, breathless, barely holding together. She said only a few words before breaking down. "I think someone's been hurt. Please, I heard screaming." The dispatcher asked for an address. The woman hesitated, then gave it. A single-family home on the edge of town. Quiet neighborhood. Low crime. The kind of place where nothing ever happened. The dispatcher stayed on the line, but before responders could arrive, the call disconnected. Repeated callbacks went straight to voicemail. That should have been the first red flag. Police arrived within 6 minutes. Lights on, front door unlocked. No signs of forced entry. Inside, everything looked normal. Too normal. Furniture untouched, and broken items, and blood. No one there. Not the caller. Not a victim. Not anyone at all. The house belonged to Evan Miller, age 34. He wasn't home. Neighbors hadn't seen him that night. And according to records, the phone that made the 911 call was registered to him. Evan Miller didn't fit the profile. No arrest and no restraining orders and no violent history. He worked as a systems analyst, kept to himself, paid his bills, had lived in that house for 5 years, which raised the obvious question. If Evan wasn't home, who made the call, and who were they calling about? Police searched the house thoroughly. Every room, every closet, every crawl space. Nothing. No signs of a struggle. No evidence anyone had been injured. But there was something strange. The kitchen sink was running. Cold water. As if someone had turned it on and walked away. In the living room, a chair was slightly out of place. Not overturned. Just moved. Enough to suggest someone had stood up quickly. But that was it. No proof of a crime. Yet the call was real. Recorded, time-stamped, logged. The dispatcher remembered the call clearly. The fear felt genuine. Raw, not staged. Audio specialists confirmed it. The voice showed signs of real distress. Elevated heart rate. Irregular breathing. Cognitive overload. This wasn't a prank. Whoever made that call believed something terrible had happened. Police tracked Evan's movements. His car was still in the driveway. Wallet inside the house. Phone missing. His credit cards hadn't been used. Bank accounts untouched. Work said he hadn't shown up the next morning. Friends said they hadn't heard from him. He had simply vanished, which turned the case from a suspicious call into a missing person investigation. 2 days later, a neighbor came forward. She lived 2 houses down. She said she heard yelling around 2 a.m. Not words, just raised voices. One male point one female. Then a loud thud. After that, silence. But she didn't call police. She assumed it was an argument. That assumption would haunt her. Investigators focused on the female voice. Who was she? Evan didn't have a girlfriend. No one had seen a woman staying there. No clothes, and no toiletries, and no personal items. But phone records showed something interesting. A number Evan had been calling frequently, late at night, almost daily. The calls lasted hours, but the number was prepaid, untraceable, registered under a fake name. When police reviewed the 911 audio again, they noticed something subtle. In the background, a faint sound, almost mechanical, like a beeping. Analysts isolated it, slowed it down, enhanced it. It matched the sound of a home medical monitor, the kind used for heart conditions. But Evan had no known medical issues, and no such device was found in the house. Detectives expanded the search. They checked nearby homes, garages, sheds, backyards. Then they reached the house next door, vacant, for months, owned by a rental company. Inside, the air smelled stale. dust everywhere. But in the basement, they found something that didn't belong. A folding chair, a power strip, medical tubing, recently used. The basement had been cleaned, too clean. Bleach residue on the concrete, drain marks near the floor, and scratches, deep ones, as if something heavy had been dragged. This wasn't Evan's house, but it was close enough, and that raised a terrifying possibility. The crime didn't happen where the call came from. It happened next door. Forensic analysts examined Evan's computer. They found encrypted files, hidden folders. One contained audio recordings, voicemails, dozens of them, all from the same woman, all distressed, all begging Evan to stop. Stop what? No one knew. Then came the discovery that flipped the case upside down. The 911 call. The voice wasn't female. Advanced analysis confirmed it. It was Evan, using voice-altering software. In real time, he had disguised his own voice and made the call himself, which meant one thing. Evan wasn't reporting a crime. He was staging one. Police issued a warrant. Evan was located 3 states away, living under a different name. He didn't resist arrest, didn't ask questions, didn't deny anything. But when asked where the victim was, he said something chilling. There was never supposed to be a body. Prosecutors argued Evan had killed a woman whose identity was still unknown. They said he staged a 911 call to control the narrative, that he cleaned the scene, moved the body, and vanished. The defense argued something radical, that no crime had ever occurred, that there was no proof anyone had been hurt, no body, no missing person report, no confirmed victim, just assumptions. After 6 weeks, the jury convicted Evan Miller, second-degree murder, based entirely on circumstantial evidence. The 911 call, the basement, the recordings, the disappearance. Evan was sentenced to life, but to this day, no victim has ever been identified, no remains recovered, no missing person matched the evidence, which leaves one haunting question. There was never supposed to be a body. That sentence detonated inside the courtroom. It replayed on news channels, echoed across podcasts, printed in bold headlines, because it changed the question. This was no longer about who Evan Miller killed. It was about whether anyone died at all. And once investigators pulled on that thread, the entire case began to unravel. 3 weeks after Evan's conviction, a public defender filed a post-trial motion. Buried in exhibits was something overlooked, a time code mismatch. The 911 call log showed the call began at 2:17 and 43 seconds a.m., but the audio file metadata said it was created at 2:19 and 11 seconds a.m., 90 seconds later. At first, it seemed like a clerical error. Then a technician noticed something worse. The original call file had been edited, not by police, not by prosecutors, by a third-party system, a private emergency call, routing vendor used by the county. The call wasn't altered in content, but it was processed, filtered, enhanced, and compressed, which meant the voice analysis that helped convict Evan was based on a modified file. The defense tracked down the audio expert, Dr. Leonard Pike, the same man who testified under oath that the caller's distress was authentic. Shown the unprocessed file, Pike went pale. "This isn't the same audio I analyzed," he said. He listened again. Silence filled the room. Then he shook his head. "I can't say this is Evan anymore," Pike admitted. "And I can't even say it's one person, because buried beneath the distortion were 2 overlapping voices, one crying, one whispering. Enhanced properly, the whisper became clearer, male, low, calm, too calm, and the words weren't about help. They were instructions. Say it again, slower. Now breathe." The 911 call wasn't spontaneous. It was directed. Someone was coaching the caller in real time. Investigators went back to the woman 2 houses down, the one who heard yelling. She was hesitant. Then she admitted something she hadn't said before. She heard 2 male voices, not one male and one female. She didn't report it because it didn't make sense. No woman screaming, just a man yelling, and another man telling him to calm down. The medical tubing, the power strip, the monitor. New experts were called. Not medical, industrial. What they found stunned everyone. The equipment wasn't for patient care. It was for sound isolation, noise dampening, signal modulation. The beeping wasn't a heart monitor. It was a frequency stabilizer used in covert recording setups. If Evans staged a call, why involve equipment designed to control sound? Why risk witnesses? Unless the call wasn't a crime. Unless the call was a test. The encrypted files were reopened, this time with federal assistance. Inside wasn't a victim's identity. It was a schedule, dates, times, short phrases, and names. One name appeared repeatedly. Caleb Rourke, no criminal record, no known connection to Evan, but the dates lined up with something else. Other 911 calls, across 3 counties, different voices, same pattern, calls reporting violence. No victims found, no evidence, cases quietly closed. A data analyst connected the dots. 7 calls, 7 locations, 7 times someone reported screams, and every time, nothing was found. No victims, no suspects, just fear and confusion. The calls weren't random. They were placed deliberately, like drills or rehearsals. Evan Miller wasn't the architect. He was a participant, a small one. The whispering voice wasn't his. And when investigators isolated it across all 7 calls, it matched one man, Caleb Rourke, a contractor, specialized in telecommunications infrastructure, worked for the same private vendor that processed 911 calls, had access to routing systems, audio filters, metadata. He could manipulate how a call sounded, when it was logged, how it was perceived, and most importantly, how it would be interpreted in court. The calls weren't meant to report crimes. They were meant to shape belief, to prove something terrifying, that a person could be convicted without a body, without a victim, without certainty. Just fear, just suggestion, just narrative. Confronted with the evidence, Evan finally spoke. He wasn't defiant anymore. He was exhausted. "I thought it would stop at the calls," he said. "They said no one would get hurt." Jose? Evan swallowed. Caleb said it was research. Research into what? How people react. Evan said, how systems respond. "And when it went wrong?" the investigator asked. Evan looked up. They needed someone to blame. Evan had been chosen carefully. No record. Quiet. Plausible. The encrypted files? They were instructions. The basement next door? Rented under a shell company. The voice-altering software? Provided. Everything had been planned, except one thing. Evan panicked. He ran, which forced their hand. Caleb Rourke vanished before an arrest could be made. His apartment was empty, servers wiped, but one thing remained, a storage unit. Inside, hard drives, logs, and a document titled Phase 2. The document outlined escalation, bigger calls, more dramatic claims, wider media reach, and one chilling line at the end. Eventually, a body will be required. Evan's conviction was stayed, an appeal fast-tracked, federal charges prepared. The county cut ties with the vendor overnight, and suddenly, everyone asked the same question. If Phase 2 was planned, did it already begin? 2 days before Evan's appeal hearing, another 911 call came in. Different state, different voice, same whisper in the background, and this time, responders found blood. The blood changed everything. Because for the first time in this case, police didn't arrive to silence. They arrived to proof. The call came from a different state, different county, different dispatcher, but the structure was the same. Late night, distressed voice, claims of violence, and beneath it all, that whisper. Responding officers expected another empty house, another dead end, another manipulated narrative. Instead, they found blood smeared across a hallway wall. Fresh, still wet, and leading somewhere. The house belonged to Marissa Cole, age 29, elementary school teacher, NO criminal history, NO known enemies. Her front door was open. Inside, furniture was overturned, not staged, not subtle, violent. The blood trail led to the back bedroom, where officers found something the other scenes never had: a broken lamp, a cracked mirror, and a single shoe. Marissa was gone. This wasn't a rehearsal anymore. This was execution, which meant Phase 2 had begun. And whoever was behind it had crossed the line. They swore they wouldn't. The 911 audio was rushed to analysts. They isolated the background, boosted the low frequencies. And there it was, clearer than ever. The whisper wasn't instructing. It was reacting. No, this wasn't supposed to happen. For the first time, the whisper sounded scared. Investigators now believed Caleb hadn't planned this escalation. Someone else had forced it, or accelerated it, which meant the operation had a hierarchy, and Caleb wasn't at the top. Data pulled from the C's hard drives revealed something new: encrypted communications. Messages Caleb received, not commands. Approvals, from a handle that appeared repeatedly. Architect_01. The messages were short. Cold. Final. Proceed. Approved. Necessary. And one message sent just hours before Marissa's call. Phase 2 is overdue. Tracing Architect_01 wasn't easy. The signal bounced through servers across 4 countries. But one mistake cracked it: a timestamp mismatch. A server in Virginia logged a login attempt that didn't align with the rest. The IP resolved to a restricted network, a government contractor, not law enforcement, not military, something quieter, something buried. The address led to a research firm with a vague mission statement: behavioral systems optimization. No public-facing projects, no press, no interviews. But the funding trail was clear: federal grants, Homeland Security subcontracts, psychological resilience research. The kind of research meant to answer one question: how much evidence does the public need to believe something is real? This wasn't about crimes. It wasn't about victims. It was about belief. Could panic be engineered? Could trust be bypassed? Could the justice system be triggered without facts? Evan Miller had been proof of concept. A man convicted. No body, no victim, just narrative. Phase 2? Phase 2 tested the next question. What happens when the narrative becomes real? Cell data placed Marissa at home all evening. She'd been grading papers. Texted a friend at 10:42 p.m. Long day. Heading to bed. At 1:56 a.m., her phone connected to a nearby tower. She hadn't left. Someone had entered. The back door showed signs of forced entry, but not amateur. Professional, quiet, targeted. A neighbor reported a vehicle, black SUV, no plates, parked briefly near Marissa's house. The driver never got out. Someone else did, someone wearing gloves. The SUV left less than 10 minutes later. Marissa was taken alive. If Phase 2 required a body, why keep Marissa alive? Unless she wasn't the body. Unless she was something else. More files were found in Caleb's storage unit. Recent ones. Post Evan's arrest. Recordings labeled live response testing. In one clip, a woman is crying, not screaming, begging. Please, she says, you said this was just a call. That voice was Marissa's. Marissa wasn't a random victim. She had been recruited, approached weeks earlier, offered money to participate in a simulation study. Stress response testing. Anonymous. Legal. She signed an NDA. She agreed to a staged emergency call. She was never supposed to be touched. The whisper in her call wasn't Caleb. It was someone else. A new voice. Lower, colder, and completely unrecognizable. Architect_01 had taken over. Federal agents attempted to shut the program down, but they were too late. Servers wiped remotely, funding accounts frozen, paper trails erased. And then came the most disturbing discovery of all. Architect underscore 01 wasn't a single person. It was a role, a rotating position, approved, signed off, passed along. No one held it long enough to be accountable. Buried deep in one contract was a clause: emergency authorization. In cases of perceived national threat, oversight could be bypassed, ethics waived. Phase 2 didn't violate protocol. It activated it. 3 days after call, hikers found something: a jacket, torn, bloodied, confirmed to be Marissa's. Nearby, drag marks leading toward the river, but no body. Again, publicly, the story was simple: a missing woman, possible abduction, ongoing investigation. Privately, investigators knew better. This wasn't a crime. It was a test run gone live. Evan was brought in again. Show Marissa's photo. He broke. They promised me no one would get hurt, he said. They said it was about prevention. Preventing what? Mass hysteria, Evan whispered, or controlling it. Internal memos revealed something terrifying. Phase 3, no details, just a date, 6 weeks out, and a note, scale required. Phase 3 wasn't about one call or one town. It was about many, simultaneous, nationwide. If Phase 1 proved belief and Phase 2 proved escalation, Phase 3 would test obedience. The first real victim was never the woman. That line detonated across the internet. Screenshots, leaks.late night debates. Because if Marissa Cole wasn't the first real victim, then the case had never been about missing people at all. It had been about control. And Phase 3 was already in motion. 6 weeks. That was the timeline buried in the documents. 6 weeks from the moment Evan Miller was convicted. 6 weeks from the moment the system proved it could manufacture belief. That deadline expired at 12 a.m. on a Tuesday, and at exactly 12:01 a.m., the calls began. It started in 3 cities, then 6, then 12. Dispatch centers lit up like Christmas trees. Reports poured in. Screams, gunshots, attacks in progress, people trapped, different voices, different locations, same structure, same cadence, same background whisper. And every dispatcher noticed the same thing. The callers weren't asking for help. They were describing scenes, as if reading from a script. Police rushed to the first addresses. Lights flashing, sirens screaming. They expected chaos. They found nothing. Empty homes, quiet streets, no victims, no suspects, no evidence. Again, but unlike before, this time the public was watching in real time. Live stream scanners, police radio apps, social media feeds. The absence itself became terrifying. Within 2 hours, fear spread faster than facts. Hashtags trended. People locked their doors. Schools announced closures before dawn. Hospitals activated emergency protocols. Because when enough people believe something is happening, it becomes real, not as an event, but as a reaction. Investigators finally understood the leaked sentence. The first real victim wasn't Marissa. It wasn't Evan. It wasn't anyone who disappeared. It was public trust. Trust in emergency systems. Trust in evidence. Trust in reality itself. And Phase 3 was designed to finish breaking it. Dispatch centers began contradicting each other. One department confirmed a shooting. Another denied it. A third reported an officer injured, then retracted it. The noise drowned out the truth. And that was the point. Architect underscore 01 didn't need bodies. It needed confusion. A whistleblower came forward. Not anonymously, not quietly. He walked into a federal building and asked for immunity. His name was Dr. Samuel Klein, senior behavioral scientist, and former holder of the architect role. Klein explained everything. The role wasn't about giving orders. It was about approving escalation. Each architect inherited the program. Each one signed off. Each one told themselves it was necessary, until someone finally pushed it too far. That someone wasn't Klein. It was a successor. This wasn't a drill. It wasn't a test. It was a stress fracture experiment. How many false emergencies could the system absorb before it collapsed, before responders hesitated, before the public stopped believing real calls? Phase 3 was meant to answer one question. What happens when help can't tell what's real anymore? As cities scrambled to respond, a real 911 call came in. Different pattern, different tone, no whisper. A child, crying. "There's blood everywhere," he said. Dispatchers hesitated. They'd heard that line all night. The supervisor flagged it. Possible Phase 3 contamination. The call was delayed by 4 minutes. When officers arrived, the blood was real. The victims were real, and it was already too late. 3 people were dead. A domestic violence case that would have been routine if trust hadn't already been shattered. The system failed not because it was fooled, but because it was conditioned. News broke fast, not about the murders, about the delay. Public outrage exploded. Emergency services were blamed. Then the program leaked. Then the documents. Then the truth. The country learned it had been part of an experiment, without consent, without warning. The final hold of the rope was identify a name no one expected. Not a scientist, not a contractor, a former federal judge. Respected, retired, untouchable. He believed the justice system needed pressure testing. He believed fear revealed truth. And he believed casualties were acceptable. A warrant was issued quietly. No press release. No cameras. He was arrested at home. No resistance. When asked why he approved Phase 3, he said something chilling. Because now you know what belief costs. Evans' conviction was overturned. The court ruled the case irreparably tainted. He walked free, but freedom came with a weight. He had helped break something, even if he hadn't meant to. Marissa was found alive. Weeks later, barely. She had escaped, hidden, terrified. She had been used as leverage, a variable, not a victim, a proof. Protocols changed, oversight tightened, new laws proposed. But damage doesn't rewind. Dispatchers hesitated longer. Citizens doubted louder. And every unanswered call carried a shadow. Architect wasn't dismantled. It was renamed, reclassified, moved, because systems don't disappear. They adapt